Now, what absolutely nobody tells you about clearing the hips in the downswing is this, something that we see all the best players do. That is keeping your tilt with the lead side of your pelvis staying down as you turn. If you don't do that, it's simple, you're not going to clear the hip. So this is something that I have done a ton in my game, keeping that left side down as we're turning, and it is so crucial to getting you clearing the hips, but hitting some nice, really long and straight shots. So, okay, keeping tilt, what exactly is that? So where our left side is staying down as we're turning. So we know in the golf swing, the ball's on the ground. We need to stay with that lead side down to that golf ball to be able to actually hit it. So if we can keep that lead side down, it ultimately unlocks our ability to be able to rotate if everything in our golf swing, in our environment, is good. So that's going to enable you to get that rotation in there. So to understand that even more, it is as simple as that. What are amateur golfers doing? So what amateur golfers are doing, they're trying to bump and then turn. Nightmare, because if you bump your hips to start off that downswing, the lead side goes up, you're going to force your upper body to move back. It's a seesaw effect. If you lose your tilt, left side moves up, upper body falls back. So now you're in a very compromised position. If you try to rotate from there, that lower back is going to get really impinged and it's not going to be pleasant. Your back is going to be hurting. It's one of the reasons why so many golfers believe that when they clear their hips, they're going to inadvertently hurt their back. It's the concept of what they're trying to do is wrong. So that's where not only would you hurt your back, but it ultimately gets almost impossible to try and clear from there. They're going to get this real stalled out, flippy move through the golf ball, because when the hips bump, that forces upper body back, that forces the swing path to get overly in, and then that is going to really affect where the club travels through. It's going to travel towards the right, and it can really affect your low point control. You could hit some really poor ones. So let me bump the hips up, and then just try and get through it. So you can see there, I hit it fat, and look at the curve on that, Jesus. So, not easy to play good golf with that. You would have to hit tons and tons of golf balls to be able to make that work. So that's where a lot of you guys might say, okay, well the players back in the day, like say in the 90s, used to do that all the time. But those guys back then hit a ridiculous amount of balls in practice to maintain the very timing orientated swings you can get. You can get good at doing any technique, don't get me wrong, if you hit enough balls. But we don't all have that time in the day to be able to put into practice. Again, we work normal jobs, we have our life. Golf's our hobby. We don't have all the time in the world to be able to put into practice. That's where if we can do left side down and turning, it's going to have so many more benefits, and I'll show you a cool drill for it. So literally everything we just talked about, the getting that left hip down and around will fix all the bumping the hips issue. Now, you still will be moving your weight to the lead side, because if that lead side is staying down, the pressure as you start to move into that lead side is going to be in that lead leg. So you're going to get the weight shift. Let's call it pressure shift. So you can almost imagine it like a squatting into the left leg type of move. So we're getting that lead side to stay down and it turns immediately. Look at the upper body. See how it's now more on top of the middle of my belt buckle. So not only is this getting me to clear the hips, not bumping and trying, which I can't do. So down and around, immediately your hips start to turn. Your upper body stays more on top of your lower body, which means the club stays on path, doesn't dump under. And your low point control gets a lot more solid. So, it's what no one tells you about to clear the hips, and you've got to do it. So, let's talk about a good drill after this shot to get that down and around movement to clear those hips. So, here is our drill. Get an alignment stick, and what I want you to do with it, put it through your belt loop. So if you're a regular watcher of the channel, you've seen this drill maybe a fair little bit, but it is so important when it comes to clearing the hips. So now we've got a visual representation of a hip tilt. Now really make sure, tiny bit on the right, a lot on the left. We don't want it here because that's going to affect how our hands and arms move. So if we have it there, now we can see the stick on the top of the swing. What do we want to happen with the stick? Down, and at the same time, around. So that's where a lot of golfers, again, they think it's a shift and a turn, and it's at the same time. If I'm throwing a ball or skipping a stone, the shift and the turn happens at the same time. The golf swing is the same thing when it comes to the sequencing. The sequencing of throwing something with the body is almost identical to hitting a golf shot. So that's where instinctively and athletically we do it when we're throwing. Golf, of course, a little bit tougher. So down and around, gets pressure into the left and turns it. And we just want to keep getting that stick going back and back and back. So also, like you hear me talking about on my channel, hip depth, getting into hip flexion, this really, really helps with that. It's another way of going about doing it. So stick going down and around in transition, down and around. That'll get you clearing it. Let's give it a good go. So absolutely brilliant shot. Really didn't feel like I went at that at all. We can see there, 160, good controllable club path, tight little draw onto target. Pretty good with an 8 iron. So down and around, this will give you the feel. Let's do one more. And ultimately, do it as much as you can. But after this shot, there is one really important thing I've got to tell you in regards to this. So down and around. Again, felt very good. Oh, it's a yard less, 159. It's almost going to land on top of it. Oh, pretty good. So down and around, keeping your tilt, but you've got to know this. And what you've got to know is something I talked about in my how to always clear the hips video from last week. That was a very in-depth guide there. And we talked about your swing has to be in position to be able to clear. So that's where you've got to have key elements like your club face being square, good depth of your arms, hips moving back in the backswing. So many things, because quite often when golfers can't clear their hips, it's because they're doing something in their swing that is ultimately stopping them. I've not experienced a single person who can't physically, even a little bit, get cleared and open at impact. If you think you are one of those people, I can guarantee you you're not. It's something to do with your golf swing. So have a watch of that video from last week if you want to have a look at that. But also, if you want even more in depth, there's the ultimate guide to rotation in a downswing, which is one of my really in-depth video courses. Gives you a coaching level of knowledge on rotation and clearing the hips, because of course that's an element of rotation. Everything you need to do to be able to do it and how to tailor that, the info in there to your own golf swing with a good practice plan in there also. That is in the description if you want to pick that up. So if you enjoyed the video, click that like button. If you want more golf instruction, just like this, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button too to be notified every time I put out a video.